Please, please do not have somebody represent you in the publishing industry if they have not read your book. My name is Gina. I'm an author, editor, publishing professional. I help you make your writing better. Somebody over on Instagram got really upset with me when I said that a attorney who is going to represent you would be very expensive in comparison to a literary agent because you might not want to query a literary agent, just have a lawyer look over everything for you. And I said that the attorney would have to charge you if they were going to read their book. And she said that was, literally the most ridiculous thing she'd ever heard. That cannot possibly be the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard before. There are certainly more ridiculous things than that, but you should definitely not have someone represent you in the industry if they have not read your work. A literary agent will know whether or not the terms in your contract are fair, whether they are good for you and for your work. If you just want an attorney to read a contract and say whether or not it is enforceable, it's probably going to be enforceable. You are allowed to sign predatory, disadvantageous contracts. You're allowed to go get a payday loan, right? That is a terrible contract. That is really super predatory, but you're allowed to sign it. It's enforceable, it's legal. The publisher has vetted this contract through an attorney already. They probably have an attorney on staff who works for them. They know that they're going to be able to hold you to this contract, even if it is a bad contract. A literary agent is going to be able to tell you whether or not that contract is advantageous to you, whether or not it is fair, whether or not you are being compensated properly. They know whether or not you have rights that should be exploited in other markets, or whether that's not really going to be a thing for the type of book that you are writing. They know whether or not this publisher should be giving you a right of first refusal, what that means, what those timeframes should look like. They know how advances get split up, and they also can read your book and have a general sense of what it is worth. They will be able to say, I've sold books very much like this one for $15,000 to $20,000 at academic presses, or I think this one might be able to fetch big money from a big publisher. They know what you are worth because they know the industry, and they can only do that if they've read your book. So the contract is probably going to be enforceable. You can pay an attorney for like an hour worth of their work, and they're going to be like, legal, it's a contract. This is the, and then you can pay them again to have them you explain it to you. Let's look at the differences between an attorney and an agent. If you want to have an attorney like read your contract, explain it to you, and then negotiate it on your behalf. So if you go to a small press that accepts unagented submissions, there are some presses that give very, very small advances, as in zero. They will give you nothing for your book up front. So you would have to pay for a lawyer all cash on hand, like you would have to pay that out of pocket. A literary agent only gets paid when you get paid. Small presses that accept unagented submissions can go anywhere from $0 as an advance up to $10,000. 10,000 is like, this is the most optimistic that I can be for you through an unagented small press. And they will pay half of that when you sign the contract. And so once you sign it, there's no more negotiating, there's no more changing things. You are locked in, it's done, you signed it. So once you go from that signed contract, and then the other half they will pay when the book publishes. Agent only gets paid when you get paid. They will take 15% commission. You are a 1099 contractor. No one's going to do any tax withholding for you. We usually suggest that you withhold 30%. And then every time I say that, people are like, I don't pay 30% taxes. Okay, I don't, sorry. Then do less. And since this is a video about silly financial decisions, you're only going to withhold 20%, which means that you end up keeping 32.50 in your account if you sign with a literary agent. If you have an attorney, and we're saying that this is, $500 is a pretty good price for an attorney, especially if you want somebody who knows the entertainment industry or something adjacent to the entertainment industry. Like, these lawyers can charge $1,500, $2,000 an hour because they work in Los Angeles and they work in New York and they work with high dollar clientele. So we're going to give you a bargain at $500. And so this might be just an attorney who does other contract work. And so he's reading over your contract. I said he because my husband is an attorney. And so that's who I always think of. I always think of an attorney. And so he's just reading the contract. And so he understands contract law, but not specifically publishing. So $500 an hour. So he's going to read the contract. And these contracts are not 2 pages long. They're like 25 pages long. And if your contract is 2 pages long, that is also concerning. That is not really covering enough like what ifs for my comfort level. So they're going to read the contract, and they're going to read it again carefully. That's what you're paying them to do, is to be careful and to look at all of the little tiny details and make sure that they understand everything, and make sure that there's not like a comma out of place that changes what this sentence means. So it's going to take them an hour to read. And attorneys always bill in these point one increments, like they're always like 6 minute increments. And so they're going to read the contract, and then they're going to explain it to you. Let's say that everything is like super hunky dory and it's like a really easy to read contract, and they jump on a Zoom call with you and you don't have that many questions. And so they bill for 30 minutes for that. But then you want them to negotiate that contract on your behalf. So I broke this into three pieces. So they're going to write the email to be able to do that negotiations. And then there's going to be a red line. They are either redlining a contract or they're going to read and like parse out a red line version that was sent back by the publisher. And then they're going to explain those changes to you. And so I gave them a point two, a one, and another point two. Because again, you want them to be careful. You do not want attorneys firing things off in 6 minute increments. You want them to take 10 minutes to write an email. Like you want them to take their time. But they're not going to accept that first negotiation. So they're going to do that two more times. And that gives us another 2.8. Add all this up. And then when we get a final contract, they're going to read that one through again very carefully. And then they're going to wrap things up by giving you some advice going forward. This is when you should expect this payment. This is how what your next steps are. Please contact me if X happens. And so I gave an hour for the contract and then a point one for that last little like wrap up advice. So all in all, that attorney is going to run you $3,400. And then you still have to take out your own taxes. And then this is what you're left with at the end. And again, you had to pay all of this before your advance came in. You have to pay this attorney to do the work. Attorneys are not going to work for free for you, where the agent didn't get paid until you got paid. So, like, you can spend your money how you want to spend your money. You're a grown up person, you're making all of your own decisions. And if querying is just so painful to you that you cannot possibly imagine going into the query trenches to get a literary agent, even once you have a contract in hand, then yeah, you could hire an attorney, someone who doesn't work in publishing and knows and understands contracts, because the lawyers who work in publishing, they work for the publishers. They work for the other side. They don't work for authors. They work for publishers. And you're going to have them do all of this work and you're going to pay them for that. And this is again, all of this money and all of this work is they still haven't read your book. They don't know if your book is any good. They don't know if you should have held out for more money. They don't know if you should have held out for foreign rights. They don't know if it could be turned into a movie, if it's good. Like, they don't know what that market looks like. They don't know anything about your work. They are literally just looking at the contract for you.